A cockroach panel, and we want this to be interactive, so we definitely want you guys to be a part of this. If you have questions and stuff, raise your hand. I've got a microphone. I'm not afraid to use it. I'll run out there, and not only that, if you ask a really good, interesting question, or if you answer something that I have questions for you, I've got candy for you, okay? So I know some of you are really tired after that big lunch, so we're going to wake you up here a little bit, okay? But this is going to be a cockroach panel. We have really 4 incredible people that are going to bring you some just wonderful information today. I used to tell my employees that we have the coolest profession in the world. For example, you heard Dr. Oy this morning when she gave her presentation. Rats and mice and bed bugs and cockroaches, okay? Outside of Dr. Pimple Popper, I can't think of a profession that is cool or as interesting as we have. How many times you go to a party? How many times you go to a family function and people stop because they want to talk to the bug lady, they want to talk to the bug guy, right? So we have really the coolest profession that's out there. When it comes to roaches, we all have our horror stories, all right? And hopefully we'll get some really good ones out of our panel today. For those of you who don't know, I'm Peter Chopin. I write for PMP Magazine. Hi, Heather Gooch. Okay. I write for PMP Magazine. I own Chopin Pest Solutions. I started it 18 years ago and sold it this past year. So now I've moved on and I'm doing some consulting work. So I started up this same day I sold my company, I started up a consulting firm, RV There Yet Pest Solutions, and I've been having a blast doing that. Our first person we're going to bring out onto the stage is Dr. Michael Bentley. He is the Vice President of Training. That's Mike, that's your cue. There you go. Dr. Mike. He's a Vice President of Training and Technical Services at the National Pest Management Association in Fairfax County, Virginia. Dr. Bentley is a board-certified entomologist with a PhD in urban entomology. He attended the University of Florida for both his doctoral and undergraduate work. Dr. Bentley is a sought-after speaker and has taught a class at Pest World, I think 6 times, right? Does that sound right? 6 times. He also hosts a very popular Will They Eat It videos for termites. Is everybody familiar with that? If you're not familiar, you have to watch it. Will They Eat It? So just look it up on YouTube. It is phenomenal. If you want to check out his sense of humor and his knowledge in the pest world, you can look up his Bug Bites podcast, which is currently up and running. Once again, big round of applause for my friend, Dr. Michael Bentley. Our next presenter is Morgan Wilson. Let's see, Morgan walk out here. There she is. Come on out, Morgan. Morgan is a PhD graduate candidate at Virginia Tech. She is a research specialist at the Dodson Urban Pest Management Laboratory at Virginia Tech under the tutelage of PMP Hall of Famer Deanie Miller. Before joining Dr. Miller in Blacksburg, Morgan worked in the wildlife industry focusing on bird work. She was also a pest, let me put her picture up there. There you go, Morgan. But she did work in pest control, especially wildlife removal specialists. Recently, she produced a bed bug action plan for the Virginia Cooperative Extension that will help guide home health care and hospice care workers through working in bed bug infested homes. Once again, please put your hands together for Morgan Wilson. You know him, you love him, it's Shep. Come on back out, Shep. There he is. Vice President Technical Services at Rose Pest Solutions in Troy, Michigan. Shep has been at Rose since 1987. Shep is well known in our industry, especially in the field of urban entomology. He was involved with Copasan from 1987 until 2020, serving as a chairman of the technical committee for 2 years. I changed up your bio. Are you impressed? I did some stuff there. He recently won an award from his alma mater, Michigan State University, where he got the Michigan State College of Agriculture and Natural Resources Outstanding Alumni Award. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Shep. And lastly, and clearly not least, Dr. Amaya Gondalekar. Dr. Gondolaker came to the United States in 2007 after graduating from the College of Agriculture in India. He got his PhD in entomology and insect toxicology from the University of Florida in 2011. Did you and Dr. Bentley, did you guys kind of cross paths? Okay, all right, very cool. For the past 12 plus years, he has been at Purdue University, spending most of his time as a research associate professor. Recently, he completed an animated video on roaches on the TED Ed website, and I once again encourage you to check that out. He edited the narrative and provided the technical information for the video, which has garnered over 3 million views. He is recognized within our industry for his work on insecticide resistance in German cockroaches, and more recently, bed bugs. His doctoral research project dealt with the development of an insecticide resistance management plan for German cockroaches. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Maya Gondolaker. So a real quick intro on roaches, and this is where you get your chance to get your first piece of candy. How many, just first person raise their hand, how many species of roaches are there in the world? Right in the back.
3,000.
How many?
Over 3,000?
Yes, but more. Anybody else? You right there?
2,500?
How about 4,600? 4,600 species. And who's the gentleman? Raise your hand first. Is that Tony? Tony, I don't have my glasses on. I can't see anything. I should have seen that beard from a mile away, though. Here you go, Tony. Here's a Snickers bar. Tony does not need a Snickers bar. Tony's like in that commercial, the before and after with Tony DeVito. That's my man there. So cockroaches, 4,600 species, 30 of which tend to bother human beings on a time to time. The big three, of course, German, American, and Oriental. Roaches have been around for 300 million years, and they are thigmotropic, okay? You heard Shep in his presentation, they like to be held on 3 sides, right? They like to be tight and enclosed places. The key for a good roach job is inspections. You gotta get on your hands and knees, right, Shep? Gotta get 75% of a roach job's on your hands and knees. You gotta get down there, okay? This is a company I was helping out in the Bahamas. We were looking for cockroaches in a kitchen. You do it from your hands and knees. The 2 most important tools you have in your arsenal are your brains and your flashlight, all right? Don't ever forget that. Roaches develop through gradual metamorphosis, egg, nymph, adult. After hatching from the egg sac or ootheca, the roach nymphs go through several instar stages before they become an adult. And you guys know they are prolific. Oh, look at that, Shep. Nice little glue board. Sticky trap, monitor, whatever you want to call it. I love glue boards. But very important to a good roach job. And as you're hearing from our panel today, there is no one way to get rid of roaches. Baits, insect growth regulators, desiccants, vacuums, aerosols, glue boards, monitors, all of them work. Liquid pesticides too. So lots of things in your arsenal that we're going to talk to these fine folks about real quickly here. The first thing I'm going to present to you, and I want to hear from each one of you on this, of course, is the nastiest, the grossest, the most heartbreaking roach job. I'll tell you from past experience for me, I got a call one time from a landlord in Waukegan, Illinois. He was at the hospital with one of his tenants. A 4-year-old girl was having ear problems, and she couldn't communicate the pain she was feeling. She's 4. And when the doctors went in there and took out an adult female with 36 other roaches, the nymphs that had hatched, they were eating on her eardrum, okay? So those are the horrible things that we hear about. And Dr. Oy, in her presentation earlier today, you know, we're in this for the health, right? We're in here to help people. And that's a situation where I got a chance to help somebody. So, Dr. Gondolaker, I'll open it to you. A situation where you ran across a really nasty, bad roach problem?
Yeah, so I work in Indiana and Illinois, mostly in public housing, testing new products and testing new technologies such as remote monitors. So during that time, one of the worst jobs places that I have seen is a place that had a lot of pets. So with pets, there were many food bowls, like pet food bowls, and almost all of them were infested with cockroaches. So we heard Dr. Faith Hoy talk about One Health. So there was a lot of transmission of pathogens happening between those pets and cockroaches. Eventually, what we are able to do is get rid of the pet food. We are asking the owner, the resident, to put away the food, for a week. Just put it out when the pets were feeding on it. And that kind of helped resolve the problem, not immediately, but it took two months. But that was kind of the worst problem I have seen, like interaction between pet food, pets, and cockroaches.
All right, thank you. My Shep, this is a 1 hour show, so keep it short, okay?
Will do. You know, the more of this you do, the harder it is to answer a question like, what's the worst cockroach? Either you can't remember that far back, or you can't compare it to others you might have seen. I would say the worst case cockroaches I've seen, at least in a residential situation, started off as a spider problem where we were contracted by the city to go into a home to deal with the spiders because the public works people wouldn't go in the home because there were too many spiders. There were too many spiders because they were feeding on cockroaches, and that was by far the worst problem in there. It was a family who came from a section of the U.S. where they didn't deal too much with that and didn't care a whole lot about bugs one way or another. This is not an urban setting they came from. But it was so heavily infested with cockroaches and webbed over with spiders, it was really, we went in with vacuum cleaners and boxes of bait, and that curve could have been just from there.
There's nothing in this world as satisfying as sucking up roaches. It's just a very satisfying sound, isn't it?
They don't survive that. They're dead by the time they get to the bottom.
Just love that sound. Morgan, how about you?
One of my worst cases with German cockroaches was also one of my first. So in 2019, it was probably my second week working in Dr. Miller's laboratory. And we receive a call from Virginia Commonwealth University's medical school. They had a patient, an elderly woman who was coming in for her appointments, and they were pulling bed bugs off of her. So social services contacts us, and we end up going to this woman's house. And I had never seen anything like it, and this is telling. Deanie has never seen anything like this. So going into this house, German cockroaches in almost every single room, in every single nook and cranny out in the open, and living side by side with them were bed bugs, just as many numbers. So we ended up using that woman's house as our first case study, testing out this whole home heat system equipment, and it ended up working fantastic. A complete elimination of the bed bugs as far as we could tell. We put out monitoring devices and everything for temperature sensing. The cockroaches, oh my gosh. They definitely can die from the heat, I will say that. The heat assault works really well in getting that temperature up to that thermal death point for everything. But standing in there, it's like 135 degrees in that house, cockroaches and bed bugs dying everywhere, all over on the floor. And I think to myself, yeah, I could have a career with this. And ever since then, I always thought that would be the worst case I would see. But no, they just kept coming. We kept finding similar situations. So that's my first story.
The second most satisfying sound is sucking up bed bugs, right? Very nice. Dr. Bentley, what do you think?
Yeah, well, first off, thermal death point, I think if I'm going to start a heavy metal band, that's going to be the name of it. So I'm going to get the copyright on those t-shirts right away. So I'm going to approach the question from a slightly different angle, because I know that we've all experienced these horrible situations where we've seen tons of cockroaches. In fact, the worst place I ever saw the most cockroaches in my life was before I actually started as a pest control technician. As an undergrad at UF, you have the opportunity to be able to do community service hours. So I worked for a food bank for a semester, and our job was to go in and just knock out the cockroaches from all of the boxes of food that were then going to be pulled out to the food bank. I still to this day have never seen so many cockroaches in boxes. But my horror story from pest control is one where it was my first year as a technician, and it wasn't so much all of the cockroaches that I saw, but it was kind of how I approached the problem and how I mishandled the issue. We had a situation where it was a really nice home. I did pest control down in South Florida, so I was working down in Miami at the time. Really affluent house. So for them to have German cockroaches at all, they were appalled. Their tolerance level for any pest issue was 0. So I get called in there to take care of the problem. And it's a client that we've had for a couple years, and I go in there, and they're just seeing a couple cockroaches. So we put out some monitoring devices, the awesome things that we saw in the previous presentation, caught a couple German cockroaches. So I go back, I put some baits out, I come back, nothing. A couple weeks later, cockroaches again. I'm going to fast forward through all of the embarrassing callbacks, and by this time I'm blaming the client, I'm blaming them on this, I'm doing all these other things. 3.5 months later of still going back every single 2 weeks, finally had another guy come out that had been in the industry longer, and he says, well, did you talk to the client about any changes in their living conditions? Well, no, it's German cockroaches, so they're in the kitchen, right? That's the problem. Well, so we go back there, and with the person at the time that had a little bit more experience in the field than me, I said, so talk to us about the changes in living conditions. Oh, well, my son just came back from college. And he's got the couch that we used to have in his dorm room that's now in the living room area. So the couch was where the German cockroaches were. So horror story, not from the sense that there was a lot of cockroaches, horror story from kind of the cringe sense of not really paying attention and fully understanding the problem I was dealing with and doing my due diligence with the clients at the time and caused them about 4 months of pain and me years of embarrassment, including now sharing this horrible story with you on stage.
And his son went to Florida, right? Right? Went to Florida?
What's that?
His son went to Florida?
No, University of Miami. The son went to University of Miami.
Okay, all right.
They don't have German cockroaches in Florida.
No, they don't.
No,
It's all
absolutely
taken
not.
care of. Anybody in the audience want to share just one person want to share a story with us just real quick with the panel? Anybody? This is interactive. You can do that. Piece of Snickers. I got a gentleman back there. All right, I'll get you a Snickers bar here. We all have these horror stories. One of mine was one time I had a trainee. Who raised their hand? I don't have my glasses on. There we go. I had a trainee with me one time, and I'm going to sneak in here next to you, okay? And he threw up in his face mask. He threw up in his respirator when we went into his apartment building. It was that nasty.
Hi. Okay, so my horror story is more like it's sad. So my first year in structural pest, I went to an apartment for a cockroach call. And I found cockroaches after inspecting and getting to know the customer. Started talking to them, and it was a single parent, and there were 2 children there, and they told me about their experiences. And then the parent told me, it's really not that bad because I've had them for a while. I'm like, what does that mean? And this parent was about somewhere between 30 and 35. Oh, I've always had cockroaches. I've been living with them my entire life. Yeah.
We hear those again all the time. Thank you for sharing that with me. Oh, I'm sorry. This one, there you go. All right, panel, toughest roach, German, Oriental, or American? Mike, we'll start the other way. How about with you?
All right, so there we go. Answer was so bad last time they cut the mic.
It was so long.
Yeah, so long. All right, so I'll be brief. I think that the easy answer here would be the German cockroach, but I think I can make a strong case for the American cockroach. In situations in which, especially if you've got commercial buildings, their association with sewage lines and plumbing penetrations, oh my gosh, at least the German cockroaches, we know, minus me, my first year in pest control, not really knowing, I guess, where they could come from. German cockroaches, you typically have that association with that living environment. But once you introduce the sewage system and those plumbing lines in this situation with a large commercial building, even some residences where you've got infestations that are coming through these multifamily units, these duplexes through these sewage lines, it can be a nightmare.
I think with Orientals, sometimes you can have a hard time narrowing down exactly where the Oriental's coming from. What do you think?
Yeah, that's the exact same thing I was going to say. When you have German cockroaches, if you can find the location, there you go. You apply bait there, close to the harbor edge, and you get rid of them. If it's Oriental cockroaches, American smoky brown, you need to find the source, which could be in a crawl space, in a basement, in a sewage system, right? So that's the most difficult part. If you cannot zero in on the location, then it's going to be tough, yeah.
Okay, very good. So, Shep, German, American, Oriental, is there a fourth roach out there that people deal with on a regular basis that maybe we're not giving enough love to?
Well, the other cockroaches that they tend to be either invasive, in which case they're in like the spotted Mediterranean cockroach, which is expanding its territory. It's an occasional invader. It lives outside. But there are others, like the Turkestan cockroach, for if any of you come from a place that has them. If not, stand by. You got to get used to them, and they got to get used to you. Like all invasives, they come in and they explode, and they just go crazy, and everybody thinks, oh my gosh, we're all going to die, and we don't know whose people to let go, and what do we do with this? But nature, it'll find its balance. But I think it is very difficult. The question is, what's the most difficult cockroach? And the clear answer is Americans in the sewer. So you gotta, in your mind's eye, you gotta see the account that has contacted us is in this building that sits on top of this ocean of cockroaches, and they want you to get rid of all these cockroaches. The cockroach isn't what's tough here.
It's the
It's
place.
you taking on that job, representing that you can help them with all of those cockroaches by working on this one spot right here, which, of course, you can't.
Morgan, a fourth roach maybe flies under the radar. What do you think?
Oh, I would say we don't have Turkestan cockroach where we are in Virginia, but that's not to say it may not happen.
Shep said yet.
I have not seen it yet. I look forward to a new challenge. Not that I don't want Turkestans in Virginia. I would say brown-banded cockroaches, similar patterns to German cockroaches, less and tied down to moisture requirements. I've seen them from time to time in a particular campus I work at. I would say as far as difficulty, I can understand the American cockroaches. I've been down in steam tunnels where buildings are connected by these steam tunnels. You have to go straight to the source with the Americans. German cockroaches, it is the difficulty of the environment for me. So I work in low-income housing a lot, and oftentimes hoarding situations as well. And these high-cluttered environments where there's food sources everywhere, whether it's human food, dog food, cat food, doesn't matter. And you have all of these different hiding places. You need to know basically how to address a heavy German cockroach infestation, and you're going to have to accept the fact that the resident's not going to prepare for your arrival, and you need to treat accordingly with what you need to do.
Okay, audience, a fourth or fifth one that we haven't brought up. You guys deal with? No, it sounds right? Okay, all right. No wood roaches in here? All right. Okay. Besides the legendary Austin Frischman, who's up on our screen right now, is there somebody, Shep, in your life that really helped you with your career, especially in roaches? Someone that you really look up to in the roach world that besides Dr. Frischman? Okay, Mike, anybody?
There was the man's name was Ralph Bell. He was a 25-year technician at the first company I ever worked for, who showed me how to kill cockroaches with a duster full of, it was sodium fluoride. Yeah, sodium fluoride and a sprayer full of whatever.
My dad too. Yep. Mike, anybody in the industry really cockroaches? Go, that person, they're on the money.
In terms of control, given the first story that I started with, Edgar Rodriguez was the guy that showed up to the account to educate me on what I was overlooking. It also helped me to understand a lot of the nuanced behaviors, not only with the pests that we're dealing with, but our clients. So much of my work now is focused on the research that's being conducted and not so much the work in the field. I don't have the luxury to be able to work out in the field as much as I used to. So I tend to look at researchers as folks that are kind of helping to advance the game, so to speak. And I would probably tip my hat to Amaya and his work with insecticide resistance, and Dr. Kobe Shaw with some of the work that he's doing right now with better understanding the gut microbiome of cockroaches and what that can mean for control.
All right, Morgan, besides Dr. Frischman and Deanie Miller, anybody, that's too easy.
You took my answer.
Yeah, well, that was too easy. Somebody else in the industry that you really kind of look up to?
Again, it would be an academia extension specialist. So Dr. Deanie Miller's hero, and the source of her inspiration is Dr. Phil Kaler. And I would say another one in academia that I've been paying a lot of close attention to is Dr. Zach DeVries over at University of Kentucky. He's working out in research and extension, applying different testing methodologies with the tools that PMPs have currently, and seeing what works best, what can be streamlined, and what can we do with cockroaches with these tools that we have.
Okay. And then, besides yourself, anybody else?
So,
Yeah, I did. There's something down there.
cockroach.
Yeah. It's right there. I'm not kidding. They're right there. Right there. It's falling off our panel.
Shep, did you bring that in?
American cockroach. No.
It looks like an Asian cockroach, doesn't it?
American.
It's fine.
Hey, that is not a prop.
Who's got this account?
Has anyone heard, everyone knows probably, Dr. Changlu Wang from Rutgers? Has anyone followed his work? He did some great work while he was at Purdue, and he continued that same work at Rutgers. So I said in the beginning that I do a lot of work in public housing, testing new products and technologies. Some of the techniques that I have been using, I have been following the protocols that he had developed before, as well as the connections, because to get into these public housing agencies, you need to connect with these people and gain their trust. So I look forward to him whenever I'm doing some cockroach or even bedbug stuff.
All right, very cool. As treatments evolve, what's the most important thing that's happened in your lifetime, Dr. Bentley? Shep did a great job talking earlier about how we've progressed from the old days when you didn't have debates and things like that. But you're a young guy, so in the last 20 years or so, is something that's happened in the industry that you're really kind of impressed with as far as roach control?
Well, first off, call me a young guy. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're
I'll get
welcome.
you that $20 later.
You're welcome.
I think it's I'm sure you guys are going to have way better answers than this, but for me, I really think that it's the identification of glucose aversion. Really helping us to understand so much more about different
We should
mechanisms.
pause for a second. Does everybody in the audience know what glucose aversion is? Right? Do you want a brief description? Why don't you, real quickly?
All right. So I was going to make a joke earlier about this being kind of like my qualifying exam. So when you get a PhD, you have to sit up in front of a lot of people and they ask you questions, and your advisor's in the room and they ask you questions. My advisor for my PhD is sitting right down here. So now I have to tell you about glucose aversion. This is very much, so if I'm sweating now, that's totally normal, don't worry. So glucose aversion it's another resistance mechanism that we've identified in cockroaches, in which we typically think of resistance like genetic or physiological behavior or a trait that they've developed to allow them to survive exposure to an insecticide. Well, in this case, some cockroaches, German cockroaches specifically, when they go to eat a food, an insecticidal bait that has an attractant based with glucose in it, sugar, right? They taste that and they don't like it, so they won't eat it. So, from the surface, we look at this and think, oh my gosh, they're resistant to this bait. So they're surviving exposure to it. Well, in reality, they're surviving because they're not eating it. They are averse to these baits that have glucose as a food attractant in it. So identifying that allowed researchers to inform manufacturers to develop additional baits that had other forms of sugar, so fructose and sucrose and those sorts of things. So that those that were glucose averse, they could develop baits that would avoid this. And we're still learning today new downstream effects of this glucose aversion from these cockroaches. So
How did he do? How did he do?
He's getting better.
Getting
Now
better.
I
Didn't
got
say I passed, but I'm getting better.
Okay, well, I got questions now, but that's okay.
Oh, no follow-up questions, please. Okay. If they're diabetic?
Diabetic.
Possibly.
Okay. Morgan, something's happened in the industry in the last 15, 20 years, and you're like, wow, that's mind blown.
Just a follow up with Mike, I would say because of the glucose aversion discoveries, we now have more gel bait products available to allow for gel bait rotation, product rotation. Another big thing that I appreciate that I didn't recognize was important prior to my career in pest control was the importance of monitoring for cockroaches, assessing their population numbers, not just knowing if something's present or absent, but what infestation level are we dealing with?
Yep. And Shep gave that presentation on the monitors. Dr. Gondolacker, of course, for you, it's all about beta version, right? But is there something else in the industry that's happened in the last 20, 25 years that, or something you've done?
So I would like to answer the question that they answered first, if that's okay.
Way to screw this up, Mike.
So one of the things, so I started working in this field with cockroaches in 2007. And at that time, the industry had switched to using baits, gel baits, maybe 10 years ago in the mid-1990s or 12 years. So resistance was not really an issue, right? And at that time, because resistance wasn't an issue to gel baits, we had maybe 4 or 5 different products. And as Morgan said, now we have maybe more than 10 different products with different active ingredients, some mixture baits. So that's a big evolution that I have seen in the industry, like a lot of products that are available. And that is a good thing because first to kind of manage the glucose aversion resistance, we hardly see any problems with that now with glucose aversion because the manufacturers have switched to other sugars, but also with insecticide resistance. So the active ingredient that is used in these products, cockroaches, especially German cockroaches, can evolve resistance to those products. So that is something I have seen evolve over the past 10 or 15 years. And one additional thing is that we all heard, most of you probably heard the news that Corteva sold its ActiveSense platform to another company. It's undisclosed, no one knows the name. But as a part of being in Indianapolis in Purdue, I worked a lot with Corteva or Dow AgroSciences on that ActiveSense system, not only for rodents but also for cockroaches. So down the road, it's not there yet, the electronic insect monitoring. But in the next 5-10 years, if there are some other breakthroughs that make that technology cheaper, maybe we'll see more evolution in that area.
And we're actually gonna hit on that again in 1 second. Kevin Thorne, are you in here today, Kevin Thorne? There's my friend. How you doing, buddy? I want to get your opinion on that in 1 minute, okay? We're gonna come back. We're gonna circle back to that in a minute. Shep, last 37 years that you've been in pest control, there's got to be some amazing things that have happened in the cockroach control.
For German cockroaches?
I don't care. Whatever you want to do. It's your show, man.
Not working anymore?
You're good.
No doubt about it, to have been there and seen the bait revolution go from, we didn't know what we were going to do. The Actisol machine really changed a lot of things, but man, when we got baits that actually worked, it changed everything. And
isn't that crazy to think? Who in here is under the age of 40? Okay, so no clue that there was a time, right?
There was a time
when there was no baits. I mean, it's not really, but pretty phenomenal. All right, if my panel will look back there real quickly. Okay, so I have a trivia question for you, Morgan. This is worth a Snickers bar, okay? What movie did this... Oh, too easy, darn it. All right, good. All right, now here's a really tough one, all right? Of course, Will Smith was the main star in this movie, right? Men in Black, you got that? Who is his co-partner? Who's his partner in the show? Anybody from the...
Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones, there you go. Good job, Shep. You get M&Ms, okay? There you go. There you go. Nice catch. All right, another trivia. I'll put this one out to the audience. What was the roach's name? Edgar. Who said that? Did you really say it? He had an Edgar
He
suit
was
on.
wearing an Edgar suit.
All right, anybody ever go to Missouri? You got the sites in the home of the throwed rolls? There you go. All right. Good job. All right, so that's Edgar. All right, last trivia question from this one. Which actor played Edgar? Come on. Come on, that's a hard one. Who said that? Who said, way up there? No, I can't do that. There's a, no, bad rotator cuff, and I'll get sued, I'm sure. That was a great answer. Good job. So just hit me up after and raise your hand. Where are you? All right, don't fall. I'll get you later. I'll get you later. All right, good job. Yeah, not that quick. Come on. Okay. Very good. I'm very proud of you guys. That was not too bad. Okay, so back to our crew here. Dr. Gondolaker, what is the biggest mistake that you think pest control professionals are making today when battling cockroaches?
I would say I have seen some of the pest control companies or some technicians working in public housing where they have to go like 100 different apartments in say 4 hours. What I have seen them doing is just go to a kitchen, not inspect anything, just place like 3 or 4 spots of bait and come out. So underbaiting is probably the biggest problem. And what underbaiting does, it's not only going to, give you unsatisfactory control, but some of the cockroaches that did not get exposed to enough insecticide, guess what they are going to, guess what that is going to lead to? Can you answer that question?
Develop resistance.
Resistance, right. So you are kind of not getting enough control by underbaiting, and then you are fostering resistance development also by underbaiting. So that's probably the biggest mistake, because in my experience, I think I have not got good control of cockroaches if I have underbaited in the beginning. But if I have kind of baited adequately right from the get-go, then I have got good control in my own trials.
Okay, good. Morgan?
I would agree. Just underbaiting is a big pet peeve of mine. Going into units, we monitor with our assessment-based pest management program. And with our overnight trap catch, if we catch like 500 cockroaches, do you really think a quarter tube of bait is going to be sufficient? And that's, I would say 10, 12 bait tacos is what we put them out. And that's just not going to cut it. So we have easily put out 2 tubes of bait for those cockroach numbers, and we can see those numbers drop. Another big issue is not going back and reassessing and reapplying and retreating as necessary. So you got to, as Shep mentioned in his last presentation, go back continuously and keep monitoring those same areas with multiple traps, monitors, and just keep putting out enough gel bait and rotate your products.
All right, Mike?
So I totally agree, the baiting piece. But I'm going to go in a slightly different direction and say that not underbaiting sometimes, but they'll say, hey, you said I needed a whole tube of bait in there, so I did it. Whole tube of bait. You go in there, and there it is, a 1/2 inch thick. Solid, it's like caulking, right? They're using it to seal the seam. Now it's an exclusion tool instead of a bait. So I think just understanding the right way to bait. This unit would take at least a tube based on the quantity and the population density that we see in that unit. Great, so I used a whole tube. Well, how did you use it? Was it applied correctly? So you don't want to underbait, but you certainly want to make sure that you're using the time wisely. And then just surveying, using those monitoring devices regularly to constantly monitor for that population to know when in fact you've hit that zero line like we saw earlier.
All right, Shep, so you're working with your Rose guys, you're doing some quality control on a big apartment complex or a housing units that they're doing. What are some problems you're seeing with maybe your guys are falling into? Yeah, I know there's probably no problems.
Problems?
Issues that you have to deal with.
Yeah, the biggest problem is using the good stuff. And no, it's the good stuff. I use this and this one. We wiped them out. I've never seen anything this good. If you're using the good stuff, and that's all you're using, the cockroaches are gonna school you. You gotta be prepared for where they are. And on the whole issue of, well, we rotate. This is our bait of the month or of the quarter. You don't know where these cockroaches came from. Yeah, they might have come from an apartment complex over there where the people who work here come from. They might have come from someplace else where they have a different rotation. Hard to say. If you cafeteria bait, if you got to validate your bait, offer them the bait. Here, you want some candy? If you can get a cockroach to come out of his arborage or hers and eat that bait in the beam of your white hot spotlight, you're gonna win. If you can't, don't. If you are the only one who's excited about this bait, do not put a couple of tubes of it out in this place. It's not gonna work.
All right, very good. Good answers. All right. Oops, wrong way. Sorry. There's Chef. That's a beautiful picture, Chef. I like that one. That's a good one. Where were you for this one? Do you remember?
It was a school.
Clearly.
And that's
Thank you.
he asked. And that is, I do not remember. It's the Sacred Heart in somewhere in Detroit, I think.
Okay,
But
all right.
that's Esmeralda. She's been living with me since 2007.
He's talking about the tarantula, just in case
Yeah,
guys
the
are asking.
tarantula.
Yeah.
The tarantula.
All right. Chef, this question is only for you, okay? What are you doing at Rose to train your technicians properly on the roach jobs?
Well,
Is there any Rose management in here?
we are. I should turn that over to the people who train. But
Are they here?
You start with a plan. So you've got a set plan. Here's what we do. The plan is not so prescriptive that you can only do this, do that, and do the other. It's set up so that here are the things you do. Here's how you choose, and then we put them through an on-the-job training so they're not just thrown into it, but they're taken out and shown, and then they do it, and then you get over-the-shoulder training, so there's somebody standing there with them and walking them through it to make sure that this all works, but that's generally how we do it, and there are other people who should get the credit for that.
That's okay. So you guys clearly have like a standard operating procedures, step by step, and yeah. Okay, very good. This one is for Mike. Got a picture up here. No picture, Mike. Sorry, just MPMA. Sorry.
That's me. That's
you
over there.
The bald guy.
See? You recognize the same haircut?
Kind of the similar question as Shep. What's the MPMA doing to help with training for companies for roaches?
So we got a couple of new training resources out. We just launched, I believe this month, a new Cockroach training course in our online learning center. We've got a new pest poster. So MPMA has had a pest poster series for about 20, 25 years. They just completely revamped and redesigned those. We've got a new poster dedicated to cockroaches. All the images on there are designed to serve as, you can see the ID characters and those sorts of things. But in addition to that, so one of the things that the MPMA does through our charitable foundation arm, the Pest Management Foundation, is we take donations from folks and then we convert those donations into education support dollars for scholarships, as well as supporting research for the industry. And the big driver and the mission for the foundation is to only support research that is directly applied to the industry. So, which fly light is going to be better, that kind of thing. And are currently funding a research project right now with Dr. Kobe Shaw. Can't share a lot about it, but what I can tell you is that it's looking at 8 different active ingredients in cockroach baits across 5 different cockroach species right now. We hope to have the results maybe in the next 6 months to a year. And then we take that research and those publications and we share that with the world, and then we also will make sure that we highlight that research on ongoing programs and educational events. We got Pest World every single year, as well as this year we're going to have the Global Food Safety and Public Health Summit, which will most likely showcase that research as well, as long as it's finished up in June.
All right, very good. Morgan, you have had a chance to work under PMP Hall of Famer Deanie Miller at Virginia Tech, but you've also been a pest control technician in the past. So here's my question. Do you see a different approach to roach control from PCOs versus, say, an entomologist?
As a PC. So when I worked more pest control management, it was for a wildlife removal company. So I did a lot of trapping, a lot of exclusion work, lots of work with rodent management and prevention. When it came time for like insect pest control, arthropod pest control, it was more like ant spraying, the occasional American cockroach or wood roach in someone's garage. And it was a matter of, okay, go in, spray, we're done. Put down sticky traps to catch them, not to monitor. Okay, we're done. Working, and I was definitely prioritizing the wildlife work and the rodent control. When it came time to work with Dr. Deanie Miller, she basically showed me what it takes to really eliminate a German cockroach or a bed bug infestation, not just control or monitor, just like eliminate if you can. And it doesn't require preparation on residents' part necessarily. So it occurred to me as I was learning under her, I'm like, oh, okay, so I can actually approach this like rodent management with some of these pest insects. You can assess, you know your infestation level, you put out the control measures you need, and then you repeat and monitor as necessary, and then you can achieve elimination. So I am seeing, we have a lot of other pest control companies and technicians who come and train under us or will come volunteer with us out in the field. And I see them implementing a lot of their own practices that are similar to assessment. So I do say that, I don't know how things used to be back in the past of Shep's time, but I'm seeing now in a lot of companies, especially that they're going out and assessing. That is big for me.
Shep has gray hairs older than you are. So, Dr. Conatlicker, question for you is insecticide resistance, that's a passion of yours. Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? Is it staying the same? Where are we at right now in 2024?
So before giving my opinion on it, I would like to ask the audience the question. Do you see insecticide resistance increasing in cockroaches?
Does anybody want to answer?
Yeah,
Rob,
yeah, I see.
Yes, I definitely see cockroach resistance. I think underbaiting is definitely giving them the upper hand. It's like, oh, we'll get a sneak peek at that. But yes, rotation, I believe, not just actives, but also manufacturers. So don't try to just give them the same ranch dressing. Give them Hidden Valley, give them the generic brand, give them everything that you can and empty your toolbox. Did I answer that question?
I think that's pretty good. Rob.
Yeah, thank you. So I would like to point out the survey. Has anyone read the report, The State of the Cockroach Control Market, published in PCT every year? So if you look at that, right, I was looking at it a week ago. Between 2020 to 2022, about 50% of the PMPs that were interviewed said that resistance was a problem. So every 1 in 2 people that were interviewed said that was a problem, insecticide resistance. Last year, that number increased to more than 60%. So you can see based on that survey, which is based on say 20 or 200 PMPs or company owners, resistance is growing. What I see in my research is that yes, it was a problem maybe back in 2013, 2015, but now we are in a good position. And that is because we have so many products that we can rotate. We have mixture products that contain both the neurotoxic, active ingredient, and the IGRs. As I sit here, I can think of 2 more products that are coming to the market, gel-based products, in the next 2 years. So we have a lot of tools at our disposal. So resistance can be a problem, but also as an industry, as a community, pest management community, I think we are trying to stay one step ahead of the German cockroaches in kind of addressing the resistance issue. So does that answer the question?
Oh, fantastic. Good job. You're awesome. All right, monitoring. Let's talk about monitoring again for a minute. Even though Shep gave that wonderful presentation, I think we need to jump into this just a little bit more. This is a donut I caught one time on one of my glue boards in a restaurant, that infamous donut roach. Very hard to come by. They're very difficult to get. But we got them. Kevin Thorne, I mentioned Kevin a minute ago. So electronic monitoring, you last year were huge into this. You were experimenting with it. You want to just tell everybody real quickly how the insect monitoring's gone for you with the electronic insect monitoring?
Yeah, so we set up a site, multifamily housing, low-income site. I think there's 130 some odd apartment units that we set up, and we now have data for over a year with electronic cockroach monitors, and it's been a total game changer for that site. Rampant with cockroaches when we came in, almost, I want to say over 80% infestation rate out of the 130 units. Now, after we've had electronic monitors, we weren't wasting our time going into all the units that didn't have cockroaches. We spent so much of our time doing that. Now we spend our time in the units that actually have cockroaches, and that's been huge. Also, it helps us know when things are actually solved and not just kind of at that low level. And then it's also been instrumental finding it early instead of in just these huge sweeps or whenever somebody reports it. So instead of taking 3, 4, 5 treatments, 1 to 2 treatments, and it's typically done. It's amazing. It's the future.
Good to see you, brother. There you go, man. All right, Eminem. All right, cool. All right. So Shep, you gave a great talk on the insect monitoring. Is electronic insect monitoring something that all companies are going to be going to in the future? Or how in depth are we going to get with this exactly? What do you think companies are going to be doing?
Wow, well, if we judge it by what the last, 5 years, 10 years, it may be coming a little slower than we had thought. I personally, that's the way it's got to go. This is remote monitoring, the capabilities is we're looking to see the system come out that can hit all the markers and fit our business models, and that's going to be perfect. So it's got to go this way.
Okay. Dr. Bentley?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I mean, I think it's gotten a little bit slower. I mean, 10 years ago, what did we say? Oh, it's going to be here in the next year or so. Now it's still not quite there yet. I mean, to me, I'm thinking 10 years down the road, how exciting is it going to be whenever we are able to see more of these devices being used and start to actually utilize some of the data. I mean, that's the thing that I think is really exciting, is that we've just started to scratch the surface of what this big pest data can really do for us, right? We start to combine these electronic monitoring results and ongoing data with weather surveillance data and all these other things, all these smart devices that we have that we've upfitted our vehicles and our technicians and our field managers with, and then those homes themselves. I mean, imagine this prescriptive future of pest control where we can forecast issues and those sorts of things. So I think we still have a little bit longer to go than what we were hoping for a decade ago, but I think it's definitely going to be the way of the future.
Okay, we're going to switch to my last question here, and then we'll open up the audience. If you want to look at that picture real quick, crew. That is not my RV. No, it's not my RV. What are you talking about? This is a house I did in Round Lake Beach, Illinois. This is a real house. I didn't do this. So, we talked about preparation work. Okay, this is extreme. Clearly, I'm doing this to make a point. But in bed bug work, you're hearing the trend now, of course, is people are getting away from the prep work. Remember, 20 years ago, it was all about the prep work. You have these lovely entomologists tell us, said you PCOs got to be doing prep sheets. Okay, but now, kind of going the other way. And now it's like, I've always felt like I want to see how the people are living before I do a service, because I could glean some more information out of it, right? So when you run into a situation, something like this, in your opinion, should we move away from prep lists? Should we just let the people kind of live how they are so we can see how things are looking in their homes? And I think, Morgan, we'll go with you.
We run into these types of units all the time. With our methodology, we don't require any preparation on the resident's part. This is pretty typical. There are extreme examples that require exceptions to be made, like that trash needs to be taken out because the cockroaches are living in those trash bags, and they're not going to go for our baked tacos when they are living in those trash bags. So Where it comes down to, a lot of the residents that we also work with are elderly or disabled, and they just cannot take care of themselves like they need. So that's where we actually get involved and just get rid of that trash ourselves, and then we can start the proper gel baiting that unit needs. So not saying that pest control operators need to turn into environmental cleaners, but it is something to think about and consider.
Dr. Gonalicker, what do you think?
Yeah, we never ask the residents in public housing to prepare before we go there and bait. One of the things I would like to say is we do some of kind of the, not cleanup, but moving around stuff so that we can apply bait to where cockroaches are hiding. And one good example is I always try to pull out the refrigerator on my first visit to that location, an apartment. And that allows me to apply bait right behind the refrigerator where cockroaches are hiding. I do the same thing with stuff. If there is evidence on sticky traps, if I find cockroaches over there. So prep I don't think is required for cockroach job. Maybe when you're applying residual insecticides, right, into the cabinets and cracks and crevices. Maybe that's when the residents had to remove, back in the 90s, to remove the dishes and other things in there, food items. So I don't think prep is required anymore for baiting for cockroaches.
All right, with that, I will open it up to the audience. Well, let's stick with that one. Does anybody in here disagree with that? It's a free country. You can disagree. What's that? Walk away. That is a choice. That is for sure. All right. How do you explain it to somebody that this isn't fine? Yeah, anybody. Anybody.
Understand, and we had a fellow come in to do one of our conferences who worked with hoarding, and this is a typical class 4 hoarder. They get worse.
What's a class 5?
Oh, that's where there's dead things. But yeah, and the things that support life are no longer there. That's not all trash. If you look closely at that picture, in the bottom center, there's a soda can that hasn't been opened. That's pantry. That is food storage, not trash. There is some trash there. It's not all trash. That's very difficult. Don't think you're going to explain to somebody what they need to do here, and their response is going to be, "Oh, okay," because it never is. So that's going to take more. But if you look at the kinds of situations we run into regularly, most of them, the inside of the bell curve, the prep that we really would rather have them do is the stuff that saves us time. The most expensive thing that we put into any of this work is time. And if we can get them to do it for us, that's going to help out a lot. And that's probably the greatest reason to have preparation for them to do.
That's a great answer. Does that help a little bit? Not really. Not really? Well, what do you think?
Well, that's the question. Like, I had a lady in the 70s, and she had stuff in her cupboards for 30 years. What are you going to...
Show her the expiration date.
Well, that's what it is. She had 30-year-old... Oh, thank you. She had, like, dishes from... She had, like, more shot glasses than they have at the, at the store you can buy. So I was like, why do you have... I didn't say it like that, but how do you explain, why do you still have this? Then I spent a couple hours cleaning her cupboards out for her. So that's my question. Do you spend the time cleaning it, or do you walk away, like the gentleman said?
Yeah. Probably your personal choice at that point, right? Yes, Mrs. Hilger?
We've done some work with Area 10 Department of Aging in our areas, and we get a lot of disabled and elderly folks who usually have care staff, but I don't know if people are aware, but there's actually a federal waiver that they can qualify for up to $4,000 a year, much different than $600 it was a few years ago, for pest control. And so we do bed bug work, we do roach work, and a lot of these folks are just incapable of cleaning up. So it's working with their case managers, and or we've just upcharged and done it for them. So you can't explain it to them.
No, it's tough. It's tough. Any other questions for our panel about something besides hoarding? Roaches would be great.
I have a question with some of the, we call them biopesticides in California, like with the N2 Care and the Apprehend for bed bugs. Is any of that fungus being targeted for cockroaches?
Mike, I think it'd be a great, I saw Morgan jump on. You want a Morgan?
I currently use Apprehend in a study of mine, but it's currently only labeled for bed bugs, not cockroaches. There's been biological control that's been tested on German cockroaches in the past with varying relatively little success. So currently, we've steered away from it for now.
We got time for like 2 more questions. We got to move on. Okay, right here.
And I'll get you next. Okay. So in California, we are currently dealing with the implementation of the Sustainable Pest Management Plan. And they want to remove, by 2050, 80% of pyrethroids for us. So we're trying to look at different ways to control roaches on the outside. Have you done any kind of baiting solely for roaches on the outside? And if so, what have you had?
Yes, so a lot of granular bait products that don't contain pyrethroids are labeled for outdoor application in the perimeter. So those would be definitely handy. We had a case in Illinois where there were cockroaches coming out of the gravel during the summertime, right outside the house. So we used the granular bait and that solved the problem. So you have a lot of non-pyrethroid granular bait options for that.
All right, good answer. And you got one more question.
Hi, I work for Marion County Health Department, and that's in Indianapolis. I'm a health inspector, so I work with the food retail industry. And I know we've been talking a lot about public housing, but I think one of the biggest things that some of our staff have trouble with is kind of estimating the cockroach population based upon the monitoring. We go in, we have the ability to close establishments down or require them to get pest control, to do their sanitation, to do exclusion measures. But when we go in there to check the monitoring traps and gauge what's going on in there, you see 5 cockroaches in this monitoring trap and 6 over here. Those are the ones that we're seeing right now in this one snapshot. How can we guesstimate what we don't see or how big that infestation is based upon maybe ages or the numbers?
Shep, sounds like a good question for you.
Yeah. And of course, you can't, 5 cockroaches in an insect monitor aren't a problem. The problem is the cockroaches that aren't in monitors. And you really can't look at those and then tell these without a whole bunch of other factors, which are how many monitors are there? If there's monitors everywhere and this is the only one that has them, and that's the only one it has, that's one thing. But if there's only 2 monitors and this one has 5 and that one has 2, that's a whole different thing. So there's really no way to go from 5 in this to how many is there. I'm being in industry, not in regulatory. I certainly wouldn't dictate anybody's processes, but it'd make a lot more sense to me to go through and do a visual inspection of primary harborages. Do you see any? There's 5 here, there's some in there. But how many? And how likely is it for them to show up someplace else, that kind of thing? If you found a way to be able to go through, do an inspection, and from that, decide, yeah, this place is in trouble, or no, this place ain't so bad.
All right, we overran our time, so we are done. But how about a big applause for our curator? Great job. Don't forget your CEUs, and thank you guys very much.
Another big applause for Pete for running this show.